Hey, welcome to the final video in the Second Chance to Say No series on Grumpy Acres Farm. Going to hang out a little bit and see if some more people pop in. If you're in chat, go ahead. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, to get up onto the live chat out of the top chat, because that's where all the action happens. And we'll give it a couple minutes. I'm going to say this while we're waiting. I did not realize how dangerous this topic could be until today. And if you don't know what went on YouTube today, I will explain it later. But tonight's topic is about the World Economic Forum and how it doesn't really want to ban homegrown food, despite what conservatives and patriots and homesteaders and preppers think. And we'll go through it. You know, until then, go ahead and give me a 5x5 in chat if I'm coming in okay, and we'll get started. You know, if you remember correctly, back late 2024, early 2025, there was a claim going around on a lot of the homesteading sites and prepper sites and conspiracy theorist sites that the World Economic Forum, the WEF, was proposing banning homegrown food. And it kind of went away. That's because the narrative was formed around it, saying that it was a misrepresentation of the WEF discussions and publications. It was just distortion of what they were talking about as far as related to global food policy, climate change, and sustainable agriculture. Here's the breakdown. This is why I say that no, the WEF has not proposed banning homegrown food. All right, and here's where this all comes from. So if you go out onto the World Economic Forum site, it's a very good site, by the way. There's a lot of information out there. There is no official WEF document or policy paper that explicitly claims or calls for banning homegrown foods. However, several media outlets, commentators, and conspiracy theorists have interpreted or exaggerated certain WEF discussions to make this claim. So the misrepresentations of broader WEF themes. So the WEF has promoted policies and discussions around sustainable food systems, urban planning and zoning, carbon reduction in agriculture, and food safety and public health. These themes often include critiques of unregulated farming practices, excessive water use, and carbon footprints that are inefficient agriculture. Some people interpret these critiques as steps towards regulating or discouraging private or small-scale food production, and then escalate that into the claim of banning. Okay, so the critics use extreme examples, articles and commentary opposing WEF-style global governance, sometimes isolated local regulations, sometimes cited isolated regulations banning front yard gardens, HOA rules, and raw milk states as evidence of a broader agenda. These local and national policies, not tied to the WEF, are often linked rhetorically to the WEF influence and philosophy, even in the connection, if the connection is tenuous. Okay, so right now I'm building the case as to how the narrative that they're trying to ban your homegrown food is false. Okay, so I got to do this to get where we're going. The "you will own nothing" narrative, the infamous WEF adjacent slogan, "You will own nothing and be happy," has become a catch-all for perceived elite overreach. Critiques extend it to imply you won't own land, you won't grow food, you'll rely on centralized controlled food systems. This has fueled fears about the potential ban on self-reliance, including food production, even though the WEF does not officially support such bans. So in summary, there is no explicit proposal to ban homegrown food by the WEF. These claims exaggerate from extrapolations, misunderstandings, and ideologically data-driven interpretations of broader goals. These are often amplified by distrust of global institutions and their potential to erode local and individual freedoms. So why was it important for me to do this? Why was it important for me to lay out the narrative as we saw it develop last fall through the winter and into the spring? Because everything that we talked about in the Second Chance to Say No series, the psyops and the narrative control and the building reality, everything that took place back then did this. They created the reality with most of the public that if you make this claim that you are a conspiratorial nutcase. Okay? Now, so the question came when I started looking into it. The question came to mind after I read this and came to this conclusion. If there is no direct proposal, is there an indirect one? Okay? So while there's no direct proposal from the WEF to ban homegrown food, there are indirect signals in their broader policy advocacy and language that could be argued to lead to restrictions on economy, especially when interpreted in context with partner organizations, government policy, and climate agenda. Okay, so they don't want you to look beyond the initial paragraph of the conversation. They don't want you to go into this. So here's where the idea of indirect proposal comes from. The system-based food control philosophy. The WEF promotes, and you can find this all on the WEF website. I'm not going to go out and pull the documents. Sorry, I didn't go out and pull them, because you can go out and you can do this for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Go out and do this yourself. So the WEF promotes the idea of transforming global food systems to be more climate resilient, produce less greenhouse gases, use less land and water, and embrace data-driven agriculture. This often centers on centralized, urban-focused, and corporate-aligned solutions. Examples: lab-grown meat, precision agriculture, insect proteins, i.e. eating bugs, and implicitly devalues decentralized and individual food systems like backyard chickens, home gardens, barter, and local food co-ops. While not banned outright, these decentralized systems are excluded from future visions or are seen as inefficient, insufficient, risky, or inefficient. Okay, so the next thing, regulatory pressure on food producers. So WEF affiliated or sympathetic governments may push. Now, I use the word may here. You can replace the word may with have or do push, because we see it across the board in the United States and across the world. They push strict safety regulations. I cannot sell stuff out of my greenhouse unless I allow the state to come in and certify it and regulate it. Carbon tracking and reporting requirements, water and fertilizer usage restrictions, i.e. you can't use that much water, guy. You can't. You have to use this type of fertilizer. These disproportionately affect small scale and home-based producers who cannot comply with, like, agribusiness can. The effect isn't a ban, but it becomes a regulatory squeeze that discourages or disables homegrown food production. This is what some call banned by bureaucracy. I think if you take a couple minutes and you think about your local regulations, you'll see that there's a lot of banning by bureaucracy going on. And whether it's a coordinated effort with WEF or it's just somebody who's sympathetic to the cause, it's still a ban. Next one, urbanization and 15-minute city advocacy. The WEF promotes urban development models like the 15-minute city, high-density housing, and shared urban infrastructures. These often undermine land use freedom, and critics argue could lead to less space for gardens and small livestock, more zoning bans, dependence on regulated supply chains. Again, this is not a ban, but a shift away from food independence as a culture and policy priority. Now, if you were on our live the other night, you might remember me talking about the Henry family in Cranberry Township in New Jersey, and how the city was seizing their 175-year-old farm in order to build a 500-unit low-rent apartment complex. Directly points to WEF policies, because the state of New Jersey is implementing policies and ideas that the WEF promotes and sometimes even pays for. Yeah, and the fourth thing that goes towards these claims is focus on technocratic corporate partnerships. The WEF collaborates with large business, Bayer, Cargill, Syngenta, and promotes synthetic foods, patented seeds, and carbon credit farming schemes. These partnerships can result in a monopoly on food inputs, indirectly pressuring small home producers to adopt standards they can't meet or afford. And the last one, narrative framing. In WEF and allied documents, homegrown and non-institutional food systems are sometimes linked with misinformation, i.e., raw milk, anti-GMO sentiments, public health risks, and climate irresponsibility. This narrative can be social and political justifications for limiting or discouraging homegrown food under the guise of protecting public awareness. In summary, here's I'm going to give you actions, the WEF position, and the effects on homegrown food. Before I do that, though, I told you in the beginning that this was a dangerous topic in light of what happened on YouTube today. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but Ice Age Farmer has come back from the dead, and he created a new channel called Unshadowed, and he posted a video today thanking people for welcoming back and saying that he was looking forward to making the channel successful and sharing information. Not even 12 hours later, YouTube took his channel down because it said it violated the terms of service. Now, I could tell you why he went offline to begin with. I'm not going to, though. What I want you to do is I want you to go to the Substack Unshadowed, which is his Substack, and he posted the thank you video that he posted on his short-lived YouTube channel, and he's got an article in there explaining or an essay in there explaining why he left the public space when he did. It's very eye-opening, and it made me realize as I was getting ready to do this, and I started thinking about poking holes in the official narrative, that I could end up the same space he is, myself, anybody else. And if they'll do it to him, he had 300,000 followers when they did it to him. If they can do it to him, they'll have no compunction whatsoever doing it to me. And if it happens, it happens, right? Now, with that said, if we go offline tonight, the internet's been acting wonky this afternoon, so chances are it's an internet problem and not YouTube coming to cancel me. But you never know. Be watching out on Rumble if I don't come back, though. All right, so here's the action. Promote centralized food systems. WEF position, strong. The effect on homegrown food. It de-emphasizes self-reliance. It makes you reliant on a centralized food system. Action. Support for heavy regulation. WEF position, they frequently promote this. The effects on homegrown food. Homegrowing becomes harder. And we see that in real time across the country. Action. Push urbanization and zoning. This is very common for the WF to do. This limits space for food. A lot of HOAs will not allow you to grow gardens, just plain and simple. And urbanization takes away green space and turns it into housing structures. Action. Partner with Big Ag. The WF's position is this should be normalized. Big Ag and government should be partnered. Big Ag and Big Tech should be partnered. And what that does for homegrown food is it marginalizes small producers because we can't compete in that arena. And the last one, the action, narrative framing. WF position on this or position, subtle but present. If you go to the website, you can see it. You can see it framing the narrative in every single article and discussion they post. Now, what this does to homegrown food is it delegitimizes alternatives. Go if you want a good example of delegitimizing alternatives, go back to COVID and look at the discussion centered around ivermectin. It's that simple. So, while there's no "you can't grow tomatoes in your backyard" policy, the sum of their initiatives can be interpreted as hostile to self-sufficient food systems, especially when mirrored in government policy. So as you can see, yeah, they don't have an explicit policy of it, but the narrative they create and the what's the word I'm looking for? The policies that they promote do indirectly affect small homegrown food production. Okay, so we've established that the overt claim that the WEF is looking to ban homegrown food. There's a pretty good argument there that is a false statement because they literally do not have a policy. Or I should say it's a truthful statement because there is no promotion of policy to ban homegrown food. And then we explored, well, what about indirectly proposing it? And there's an excellent argument to be made using WF policy papers and discussions and governmental policy implementation. There's a good argument there to be made that indirectly what they promote will affect or does affect small homegrown food production. So the next question, as I was going through this, the next question that came to mind after I got through the second part was, is it reasonable to say that despite no outright proposal to ban homegrown food, that the proposed WF policies effectively produce the same outcome? Let me say that again. Is it reasonable to say that despite no outright proposal to ban homegrown food, that the proposed WF policies effectively produce the same outcome? And to that, I had to come to the conclusion that yes, it is reasonable to say that many of the WF-aligned policies could produce the effective outcome of undermining homegrown food, even if that's not their stated intent. Now, again, we can replace the word could with do. There's sufficient examples out there that WEF aligned policies on climate, big ag, urbanization, et al. Do produce the effective outcome of undermining homegrown food. This is often referred to as policy by consequences rather than policy by declaration. Now, this is a real thing. Policy by consequences. They know that they can't get away with calling for the banning of X. So instead of doing that, they create policies of consequences. Case in point, the city of Webb City, Missouri says that you can have chickens. But the way the city ordinance is written is that you cannot have a chicken coop within 100 yards of a building within city limits. So unless you've got acreage within the city limits, you are effectively banned from having chickens. And to think that it just happened by accident that way is foolish. If you look at it, you know darn well that it was done purposely because they didn't want chickens being raised within the city. Now, here's how the argument can be reasonably framed. Okay, this argument that it's a policy by consequences. All right, we have to look at intent versus outcome. So, what's the intent? The WEF promotes sustainability, climate action, and global food security. The outcome of the ideas. The implementation of these ideals often requires centralized systems, standard regularization, and urban zoning models that make homegrown or local food production more difficult, expensive, and legally restricted. So, even if there's no outright ban, the functional effect may be the same as homegrown food being marginalized, disincentivized, and impractical. Next one. Regulatory capture and disproportionate burden. Large ag businesses benefit from climate-driven regulatory regimes because they can absorb the costs and the rules. In fact, many of the big agribusinesses are out there lobbying for these things. Small producers, homesteaders, and individuals struggle to comply or are pushed out entirely. There's been a huge exodus from the market of small local dairies. There's been a huge exodus in recent years of small local ranching operations. Local small chicken producers are being run out of business with the bird flu regulations. So yeah, over time, this creates a regulatory environment in which growing your own food becomes rare or largely tenuous. Not banned, but just buried under red tape. Okay, the next way they do this. Urban planning, or the next argument. Urban planning limits land use. Zoning restrictions promoted alongside sustainable cities and 15-minute neighborhoods often restrict gardens, chickens, and even composting. Now, if you think that sustainable cities and 15-minute cities are not something that can happen in America, you'd be dead wrong. There's a place in Ohio where they're developing one. In Seattle and Portland, they are exploring that and trying to build that. HOA style land use codes and local ordinances, increasingly influenced by these models, directly limit food options. So while not from the WEF directly, the downstream adoption of these policy models by local governments contributes to the same limiting effect. And I'm going to say this, after dealing with local government here where we live, a lot of these people are doing this and they don't even realize where these ideas come from and what the intent is behind it. They just see it as a smart way to manage their cities, and they do it because it's the in thing now. And here's another way to frame the argument. So cultural and institutional pressures. WEF messaging often positions tech-based, lab-grown, and corporate-supplied food as the responsible option. People who grow or share their own food, especially outside regulation, are increasingly viewed as unscientific, unsafe, and environmentally irresponsible. We had that discussion the other day during the cheese class that I did. Raw milk is considered by many people today as being dangerous. Never mind that for millennia, people drank raw milk from all sorts of different animals, and the civilization continued to chug along just fine. But the modern perception of raw milk is that it's dangerous unless it's been processed through some sort of big ag operation. The narrative can shape public opinion. It does shape public opinion and policy pressure, and it reduces social license for homegrown systems. I'll tell you what, I cannot tell you how many people I have ran across that will not eat farm fresh eggs because they don't come from the store, or they will not try locally harvested venison or duck or rabbit or anything like that because it's not wrapped in plastic. So what ends up happening, what ends up happening as a result of all these things is what's called the policy stack effect. Individually, each policy seems benign. Together, they form a stack that makes independent food production A, legally constrained. We talked about that a little bit earlier with our greenhouse. Socially suspect, the raw milk and pressure canning, and financially non-viable. They regulate you out of business. That's the key to the reason for the argument that the combined consequences of WF influenced food, environmental, and land use policies create de facto restrictions. Now, here's a reasonable summary statement. All right. While the World Economic Forum has not explicitly called for the banning of homegrown food, the combined effects of their proposed climate, food, and urbanization policies, especially when adopted by governments, create regulatory, economic, and social conditions that effectively marginalize or discourage self-sufficient food production. All right. So, the claim. The WF wants to ban homegrown food, widely circulated, often presented as evidence of food control discussion. And the people that criticize that, they go, but there's no official policy. All right. Facts are, the WF promotes global food transformation for sustainability and equity, increased reliance on lab-grown meat, insect protein, plant-based alternatives, policies favoring large-scale tech-driven solutions. And again, examples from the WF agenda articles on future food systems. Why we need to give insects a role that they deserve in our food systems. You'll be eating lab-grown meat within 10 years. And that time's already passed. They're already promoting that and trying to sell it. Now here, let me post this link. I told you I wasn't gonna pull up anything. But there's the link to the WF forum on their Food Action Alliance. You can go out and you can see this stuff for yourself. The indirect proposal, the policies can functionally undermine homegrown food. Although there's no indirect ban, as I said, WF line policies and ideas can functionally discourage or limit homegrown food. Regulatory overreach often burdens small producers more than large ones. Local jurisdictions influenced by global agendas, even if they don't realize it, pass laws that ban gardens, chickens, and seed sharing. Decentralized food systems. The WF works in cooperation with the likes of Bayer, Cargill, and Syngenta. And if you go back, I've got a video that I did explaining exactly how fragile and how dangerously unreliable the food system is in America. Using the on-demand the on-time delivery system. The push for technology-based food systems leads to consolidation and exclusion of decentralized alternatives. The source for that is an article called "The WF's Transforming Food Systems with the Private Sector." Again, and finally, the zoning and urbanization advocacy. 15-minute cities limit land use. In fact, as I pointed out with the story of the Henrys in New Jersey, actually stealing people's lands. And then, the narrative that's framed. So it's a reasonable conclusion to think that the WF has not implicitly proposed banning food, but its policies and frameworks and partnerships encourage centralized, corporatized food systems. These indirectly discourage and may eventually crowd out. Again, let's replace the word may with do, because we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen time and time again, where individual and community-based food self-reliance through self-reliance is crowded out by regulatory pressure, narrative shaping, and urban policy models. All right. And I've got some source and supporting links that I'm going to post in the YouTube comments that you can go through and look at. If you're on Rumble or X, you can go find them there in the links, and you can go check this stuff out yourself. All right. And again, if they can do what they did to Ice Age Farmer, and he was when he was booted off YouTube the first time, it was a coordinated attack. Again, go to his Substack called Unshadowed and read the essay that he put up there about how it happened and explaining what he went through, and you can see for yourself. Well, listen, guys, I thoroughly enjoyed doing this video series with you. With everything that's going on, you know, people tend to take their foot off the pedal whenever somebody gets in office that they agree with and seems to have their best wishes or their best interests. And actually, Randy, Christian's not back. He got banned today. His new channel got terminated off of YouTube today, sometime this afternoon. Again, go over to Substack, and you can get all the information there. You know, now more than ever, we need to. You literally look up Substack and then Unshadowed Skeins. Let me see. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get the link. Or you can go to. Or you know what? You can do it yourself. You guys are big boys and girls. You guys can go look this stuff up yourself. You can go. He's got Ice Age Farmer Telegram channel is up and running. He's posting stuff there. I don't know where he's going to go. He hasn't said anything about where he's going to go from here. I just know he just posted something saying that he was taken down again. And again, this is why the second chance to say no series is important, because we got to be able to identify how they manipulate us and and then come up with a plan to effectively counter what they're doing. And by having discussions like this, we can do that. But it also paints a target on us. And you know, it's very easy for the powers that be to call somebody unscientific, not following the science, or call something misinformation. In fact, now they're calling it disinformation, which implies that you're purposely trying to mislead people, which cognitively paints a darker picture about what you're trying to do. You know, a more negative picture, I should say. All right. So I'll put a link at the end. I can't do it until this is live on YouTube, but I'll put a link on YouTube to the playlist for the second chance to say no. So if you're new to the channel, you're just coming into the conversation, you can go back and watch the entire series. Be on the lookout. Last night, my buddy Lynn in our live asked that we do a series on urban prepping. So I started looking into it today, and I think I've got a pretty good idea of going through the different aspects of full spectrum preparedness and applying it to the urban setting, to the urban dweller. And I think I'm going to be able to come up with a pretty good video series on that, and we'll go through each one of the aspects. We'll see how it goes. But I hope to have the next one up. I hope to have the introductory video for that up, or the live up sometime next week. Hopefully, I'm shooting for next Wednesday. Again, if you've got any more ideas, you want to talk about something, or you want to have a special video series or anything like that, put it down in the comments after this goes live, and I will explore it. I love learning new stuff, and I love sharing the experiences and the knowledge that I gain with other people. And I'm a firm believer that the best way to become efficient at something is to teach it to somebody else. Right? Share your experience with somebody else. Okay. So if you want to help the channel, as always, go down into the affiliate links down below and get yourself something to help you be more food independent. Fight the indirect results of WEF policies and ideas by becoming food independent, more self-sufficient, more prepared mentally. And by doing that, you're helping the channel. Most importantly, man, I need you guys to go out there, get a good night's sleep tonight, go out there tomorrow morning, have your head on a swivel, eyes open, ears open, understand what you're seeing, and go live a life done free. Okay.
Survival isn't just about having the right gear, it's about mindset. In a world without the rule of law, what will you do to survive? WROL isn't just a game, it's a tool to hone your preparedness and survival mindset. Test your instincts. Outthink, outlast, and outmaneuver your opponents in a world that's fallen apart. With WROL, every card you play challenges your thinking, tests your adaptability, and sharpens your ability to make tough decisions under pressure. Whether you are planning for an everyday emergency or prepping for the end of the world, WROL helps you prepare for the chaos of everything in between. Ready to level up your survival skills? Click the link in the description to order your deck of WROL cards today and start building your SHTF mindset. The apocalypse starts here.